What's going on YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Max and I have some good news. Sony just came out with a firmware update that will add the game menu features for the Sony X95K. The 2022 Sony TVs, I don't know if it's going back to 2021. I'm not 100% sure, but this is great news for people who purchased TVs in 2022. They have added the game menu features. But I'm about to go ahead and do an update and report back to see if there's any issues. I'm excited to see what's about to happen. Hopefully I don't run into any problems just like the blob issue, and hopefully it's just a nice clean firmware update. So after the update, you do have to go through a privacy policy and go ahead and approve that before using the latest update. But first things first, the latest update, I did have an issue where for some reason I was getting 2 rows of continue watching. After this, I did a soft reboot or reset and I was still running into that issue, but I did send an email out to Google and the next day it went ahead and fixed itself, which I'll show later in this video. But other than that, everything is pretty much the same, but I have noticed that once you go into game menu, you can see by pressing the 1, 2, 3 button, you see VRR, motion blur reduction, crosshair, and crosshair type. So I'm about to go ahead and pull up the game menu and enable crosshair. From the crosshair type, you are able to change the colors and even the type of crosshair. So this is a good addition for people who are in competitive shooting games. So I do want to top my hat off for Sony for implementing this. Now they are similar to what Samsung and LG provide. So right now I didn't run into any bugs that I know of when it comes to picture, so that is a good thing. I did notice that the blacks were lifted on the Sony X95K. It's not something dramatic, but I did notice it compared to the previous firmware update. But I did notice that the picture was brighter when it comes to that HDR impact while playing with this. So going through the picture settings, I didn't notice anything has changed. No black blob compared to when I reported in previous firmware updates, so that's a good thing. But other than that, so far I'm not running into any issues, and I think Sony has done a good job. I do wish in the future that they implement a frame rate counter just to know where I'm at. I do think it's a nice touch for the game menu. So just want to say thank you, Sony, for implementing this. I'm just glad that we even got this update. So I went ahead and switched to the Xbox. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. And I'm also going to go over the motion blur reduction just to show how that works. But so far, no quirks that I have noticed while playing games. So I'm just going through my Xbox settings, showing the game menu. So I'm about to go ahead and implement Redfall. No issues on it. It's a local dimming. I did play around with that a little bit, and I'm about to go ahead and pull that up where the local dimming is still working. So that's a great thing for people who want to ask some questions about that. I'm going through the settings right now, going through different motions. You can see when it's disabled to when it's enabled. So that's good things as well too. In testing the local dimming, nothing else stuck out besides that I know that it's working as expected. So kudos to Sony making sure that nothing didn't break. I'm about to go ahead. The next thing I'm about to go ahead and pull up is the game menu and go ahead and enable motion blur reduction. So to enable that, you do have to disable VRR. So I'm about to go and test that out just to show everyone who are interested in knowing what that does. So once you turn off VRR, the screen will go blank for a few seconds. Once the screen will go back, you do have the option to enable motion blur reduction. So motion blur reduction is really black frame insertion. So previously when you have game enabled for the picture, you are unable to go into the motion to set up the black frame insertion. So now with this latest update, once you disable VRR, you are able to get into the motion blur reduction and go ahead and set it to your liking for people who are into it. For me, I really don't play with it that much. I'll go ahead and just leave it with the VRR enabled. So everything looks good for my gameplay, but you do have that added option if for people who really get bothered when it comes to gaming and they want to disable VRR and like to get into the whole motion blur reduction, they do have that option as well to toggle between that. So with VRR disabled, I am going back into the Xbox settings to see if anything was changed after disabling it. Everything seems to be fine. So I just want to kind of like show that and get back to the gameplay. So the next thing I'm about to go ahead and do is re-enable VRR. So it only takes a couple of seconds. But one thing I do want to mention as well too, I do have my PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X connected to my Yamaha RX-A8A receiver, and that is feeding to the TV. The Yamaha does support 4K 120 VRR refresh rate, so no issues between the receiver and the TV and gaming. Everything runs smooth just like as it is. So another thing I do want to test as well. So one thing that I'm going to test as well is for HDMI 3, which is the eARC, where I have my gaming consoles hooked up to my AV receiver. I'm going to go ahead and try to add my Apple TV 4K TV set box. I want to figure out if I disable VRR, if it will be able to recognize Dolby Vision. So that would be the next test. So I went ahead and added my Apple TV 4K set-top box to my AV receiver that is also connected right next to the PS5 and Xbox Series X. So what I was trying to achieve or trying to figure out or have a better understanding is that if I get out of game mode on the Apple TV set-top box for HDMI 3 eARC, I wonder if I could get Dolby Vision. But after testing this, it didn't work. So even if I disable VRR on this and go to a different picture setting, the Apple TV format will only go up to 4K HDR. You don't see the Dolby Vision. So in the past or currently right now, you would have to go in HDMI signal format and you had to toggle between enhanced Dolby Vision, and enhanced VRR. So what the game menu is doing now, if you disable VRR, is only switching between enhanced VRR and enhanced, but it's not toggling with the enhanced Dolby Vision. So I wonder if Sony will maybe able to come with a fix later in the future, but I highly doubt it due to the MediaTek chip. But I'm about to go ahead and scroll into the settings just to show that when you go into HDMI signal format, you can see exactly what the game menu is doing. But when you go into the external inputs, and you go to HDMI signal format and you go to HDMI 3 and 4, you only have the option for standard, enhanced format with Dolby Vision, and enhanced format with VRR. So what the game menu is doing is switching between enhanced format, VRR, and enhanced. No option to switch to Dolby Vision from the game menu. So going back to picture, I haven't noticed too much of a difference. I did mention a little bit of the lifted blacks, but on the other side of the coin, I do see a better HDR impact. Lastly, I'm about to go ahead and switch to the Eco dashboard. This is another area where you could go into power savings, the ambient lighting, when you have idle TV, power off, and no signal. So now you have a dedicated dashboard for this area. So if anyone who is interested, this is where it's located at. And you also have the option to look in the sub menu as well. So that is all the updates from Sony with the latest firmware. Now, I didn't go over voice command because I don't have Alexa, so there's no purpose for me to go over that. But with the added gaming menu, I just want to applaud Sony for implementing this. In the future, I would like to see a black equalizer. It was shown on the 2023 TVs. That's something that I would like to see. And also a frame rate counter, just to go ahead and match that with Samsung and LG. And also adding some picture mode genres depending on which game that you're playing, just for a nice to have, and changing the colors when it comes to the game menu. Maybe throwing that Sony PlayStation 5 colors with the blue. That would be kind of like a nice touch. I'm about to go ahead and end this video. If you go ahead and do me a favor by hitting that like and subscribe button, I greatly appreciate it. And let me know in the comments of what your thoughts are on the latest update.